In news this week, Australian churches speak out on human rights abuses in Sri Lanka. Christians crucified and beheaded in Syria. And church hospitals in the US pay out millions to settle fraud lawsuit.
This is InFocus Christian News and Current Affairs.
Australian church representatives have spoken out on international politics, expressing their concern about human rights abuses in Sri Lanka. In an open letter to Foreign Minister Julie Bishop, the Australian Church's Refugee Task Force pointed to land grabs by the Sri Lankan government and the continued arrest and torture of individuals associated with the Tamil Tigers rebel group, who admitted defeat in 2009. A number of Sri Lankans have languished in Australian immigration detention centres for up to 5 years. Some have been described as economic migrants or a security risk on the basis of Sri Lankan government information. The task force is urging the Australian government to take into account the ongoing persecution of ethnic and religious minorities in Sri Lanka and to recognise the immigration detainees as genuine refugees. The Australian Christian lobby is warning that proposed same-sex adoption laws in Victoria may end up forcing faith-based adoption agencies to close their doors. Victorian ACL Director Dan Flynn says the proposed legislation fails to provide exceptions for faith-based adoption agencies who want to continue to operate according to their values and limit their adoption services to heterosexual couples. Faith-based adoption agencies in Ireland and the USA have closed after similar legislation was passed in their jurisdictions. Mr. Flynn says New South Wales adoption legislation takes religious freedom into account by providing exceptions for faith-based agencies. New Australian research has found that a third of all cancers can be prevented by the application of 13 lifestyle principles. According to the Australian New Zealand Journal of Public Health, the foremost cancer-causing behaviour is smoking, which is linked to more than 15,000 cancer diagnoses every year. And the slip, slop, slap skin cancer prevention message doesn't seem to be getting through to everyone, with sun exposure being responsible for more than 7,000 cancers. What's clear, however, is that exercise and a diet rich in fruit and vegetables and low in alcohol and red meat reduces cancer risk significantly. It's a lifestyle pattern remarkably similar to that recommended by the Seventh-day Adventist Church for the past 150 years. The worst fears for Christians in ISIS-occupied Syria have been realised, with reports of rape, beheading and crucifixion coming from a village near Aleppo. According to Christian Aid, 11 local Christian missionaries were tortured and killed by ISIS soldiers last month when they refused to deny their faith in Christ. The regional ministry leader said he hadn't been able to convince the missionaries to leave the area. They'd said their place was with the survivors of the civil war. Witnesses say 4 of the missionaries were crucified, one of them a 12-year-old boy. The other 7 missionaries were all praying while they were beheaded. The deliberate targeting of Christians in an Oregon college massacre has left communities and churches shocked and struggling to forgive. According to the Huffington Post, Christopher Sean Harper Mercer shot 9 people dead during his rampage and injured 9 more before turning the gun on himself. A number of witnesses said the shooter particularly targeted Christians. Church services and funerals following the massacre saw outpourings of raw emotion, with a pastor father of one of the survivors telling his Church of God congregation he doesn't know if he can forgive. The church family of Adventist woman Serena Moore, who was one of those killed, is in shock and is praying and looking for ways to support her 3 adult sons. The Adventist Church in the US is also facing a challenge to its reputation after its largest network of hospitals and other health centres agreed to pay more than $118 million to settle a medical billing fraud case. According to the Orlando Sentinel, a number of whistleblowers alleged that the Adventist health system hospitals paid doctors overgenerous fees in order to encourage referrals, and then claimed the inflated amounts back from the government. Now that the record financial settlement has been agreed on, the claims will not be tested in court. In a public statement, Adventist Health System said it regrets the oversights and has made changes to its compliance and business systems. Seventh-day Adventist Church leaders have not yet commented publicly on the case. Fear of earthquake-related injury has claimed another historic building in New Zealand, with a decision made to close the nation's oldest stone church. St Mary's Anglican Cathedral in Plymouth was dedicated in 1846 and remains an important part of the region's history. But given New Zealand's series of major earthquakes over recent years, it's been decided to temporarily close the cathedral for engineering assessments and reinforcing. It's hoped the building will be able to be reopened within a few years. After public protests, a 27-day strike and international attention, Israel's struggling Christian school sector has reached a temporary funding agreement with the government. After the government announced cuts to funding, Christian school teachers and students took to the streets, denouncing an educational funding system that fully supports Jewish schools while leaving others shortchanged. According to Al Monitor, the Israeli government has agreed to a one-off funding injection of $12.5 million for the nation's 47 Christian schools, as well as ongoing discussions on future funding arrangements. The Christian schools will drop their fees by 25% and have committed to helping students make up for the 27 days of term time they lost during the strike. You may be surprised to learn that the financial institution with the highest rate of loan repayment in Latin America is not a bank or a building society, it's a Christian charity. In Peru, over the past 19 years, the Adventist Development and Relief Agency, or ADRA, has lent about $110 million to more than 17,000 people. More than 90% of the microloan applicants are women, many of whom use the seed funding to kick off small businesses that make enough money not just to feed their families, but to faithfully repay their loans as well. An innovative digital scrapbooking project supported by the Sydney Adventist Hospital is already making a difference to the lives of cancer patients and their families.
Anyone who's touched by cancer at whatever level, it really does put things in perspective in life about what is important.
I wanted to write things for Avia. I wanted to write, my memories of my childhood and all the things that I want her to know, but, might not be around to tell her.
It's about us. It's for anyone affected by cancer, any family, friends, patients who can actually create a beautiful digital scrapbook that they'll have forever.
It gives you a way of putting all of those life stories together. It also enables you to publish photos along with those memories that you've got. I feel so much more comfortable knowing that they've got a book that they can pick up at any time, and if they want memories of Mum, if they want to know who I was, this is a really good place to start.
And that's the news for this week. For the rest of the Record InFocus program, including political commentary, lifestyle tips and inspirational interviews, check out our website, record.net.au. Thanks for your company, God bless, and I'll see you next time.